Hey everyone, PKTCG here, and welcome back to the channel. Today is a little bit of a different episode, as we are not talking about a standard format deck like I normally do here on the channel. Today, we are going to be discussing why the Pokemon Trading Card Game's expanded format has become borderline unplayable for a lot of people. There are a lot of things to talk about here, but I'll try and simplify it and not take up too much of your time by giving the shortest terms possible about how I feel about the expanded format. So, up on the screen right now is the Limitless TCG expanded format leaderboard for the Astral Radiance metagame. I'm not including Lost Origin in this video since Lost Origin is relatively new and not a lot of tournaments have been played and not a lot of decks have really been found to be good yet. So I'm going off of the Astral Radiance expanded format. And as you can see, up in first place is Shadowrider Calyrex with a 55.61% win rate, which is absolutely insane. If you can win more than half the time with this one deck, that's been the best deck in expanded since Chilling Reign. Already off the bat, that's a little concerning. But before we get really into why expanded to me is kind of crazy and almost really toxic, I do want to address that it's not the community or the players who are being toxic, it is just the combos that people are able to make that are toxic. Some decks, expanded, okay, reiterating here, expanded is a format where you can take any card from black and white to the most current set, and you can make some sort of insane deck with it. As long as it's not a banned card, in that case you'd be playing in the unlimited format, but expanded has so many good cards in it, like Battle Compressor and VS Seeker, and just so many other cards that just make decks so powerful and so broken that it's honestly pretty baffling to see how crazy the format has become over the years. Some decks have almost stayed the same, but a lot of them kind of just they come up and they do so well because somebody has come up with a great combo. So first off, we're going to look at Shadowrider Calyrex. Shadowrider Calyrex has been in kind of that top deck since it ever came out. And we'll look here, on July 12th, we had a first of 90 from Alpaca279 with their Shadowrider Calyrex list. So we're going to see exactly what this list is, and we're going to break it down. So Shadowrider Calyrex, we've covered it so many times on the channel. We know exactly what it does. But this sort of combo in this deck is just so incredibly turbo, and it's so incredibly toxic that it's so hard to beat. We have 4 and 4 Shadowrider V and VMAX, and then we have Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muck. Alolan Muck here has the Power of Alchemy ability, which for each basic Pokemon in play, no one has any abilities. So that means that if your opponent's trying to set something up, like a block deck or some sort of control deck, it doesn't matter. They have no more abilities. If they're trying to set up the Unknown Engine, they don't have any more abilities. So this locks up basic Pokemon, and that's just incredible. Incredible that this is just the first thing. We're 4 cards in, and already we have some sort of toxic lock, and quite literally toxic since it's Muck. But next up, Gengar Mimikyu. This is what made Shadowrider so powerful back when it was back in the day. Gengar and Mimikyu was just so overpowered because of its Poltergeist attack, but more importantly for its Horror House GX attack, which basically practically locked up your opponent for a whole turn where they can't play any cards from their hand, and forcing them to draw extra cards so that way you can poltergeist whatever they have is absolutely insane. And because you can power up Gengar Mimikyu in a matter of one turn by using Attach or Underworld Door, or just being able to use Underworld Door, means that Gengar Mimikyu is just so, like, broken in this deck. So, Gengar Mimikyu is another sort of, like, toxic lock sort of thing here. Tapu Lele GX is a staple card because of its Wonder Tag ability. If you play a standard format like I do, Wonder Tag is incredibly useful because we have Luminion V, which has the same thing, but that Energy Drive attack also is insane. And then Tapu Cure GX is also really good as well. So, like, Tapu Lele also can get super powerful. And then we have, honestly, one of my favorite tag teams ever, Trevenant and Dusknoir GX. And Nightwatch locks your opponent up even more. And then Pale Moon GX. I won so many games back in the day with Pale Moon GX. It's just, Trevenant and Dusknoir is just the perfect addition, and the fact that you can have all of these cards, all these Pokemon, including the Wobbuffet, which blocks all abilities except for Psychic Pokemons, it's just, it locks everything up. And Shadowrider is able to do huge amounts of damage, and it's able to just go in and smack in a whole bunch of different lock cards and then just so many different lock cards that it makes it nearly impossible for your opponent to really do much of anything. We have more cards like Acerola, which is like a Scoop Up net for any Pokemon that are damaged. We have Scoop Up Cyclone, which is their A-Spec card, which is a Scoop Up net guaranteed for any Pokemon. We have Faba to get rid of special energies or Pokemon tools and put them in the Lost Zone. We have Silent Lab so that no one has any abilities. And then we have stuff like Floatstone, which means that, like, if they're trying to stop you or trying to add on to your retreat cost or whatever, they can't do that because Floatstone immediately gets rid of all of their retreat cost. So, Shadowrider is just one example of how crazy Expanded is. The next deck I kind of want to look at is one that a lot of people are starting to either really love playing and they really hate facing. And that is with our second place list here with M Hercules or whatever 13. We see second of 32. This is Dialga, the Dialga Loop deck here. This deck I've seen on Little Dark Fury. I've seen a whole bunch of different people playing this list and different versions of it, and it's just so absolutely insane to see that you can win in 3 turns, technically, guaranteed. You have cards such as, you have Unknown. The Unknown engine is one of the most overpowered engines in Expanded right now, and that's because of its Farewell Letter ability, which means that you can keep drawing cards over and over and over again. And if you pair that with something like Dragonite EX with its pull-up ability, that's just absolutely crazy that you can keep scooping up and, like, reusing Dragonite and reusing Unknown. But then you have cards such as Electro GX, which means that you can just attach a whole bunch of energy from your discard pile once you've discarded them using cards like a Battle Compressor, and you can just power up Dialga V-Star. But I want to touch up on Battle Compressor first. Battle Compressor is arguably the most broken card in the expanded format, and probably one of the most broken cards ever created by Pokemon. And that is that you can search your deck for up to 3 cards and discard them. When I started playing the game back around 4 years ago, I thought Battle Compressor was an absolute garbage card. I thought it was so stupid. Like, why would you discard cards from your deck? But now I understand how insane Battle Compressor is. It is it's borderline, it's just the best card. in my opinion. It is the best card in the expanded format. Out of all Pokemon, out of anything, Battle Compressor is so versatile. You can just use it in any deck, and you can make some pretty insane and toxic combos with it. But then you use Battle Compressor, so you can put cards like Rainbow and Aurora Energy into the discard pile, and then you can just slap them on your Dialga V-Star, which Dialga V-Star has the Star Chronos V-Star power, which allows you to take another turn after this one. And the point of this deck really is you're trying to get rid of all of your opponent's Pokemon in play, no matter how many they have. So what you kind of an optimal strategy here is you want to be able to go, you want to get all of your all this energy in the discard pile. Then you want to go Electro GX, use extra Energy Bomb to put all the energy on Dialga V-Star, and you Star Chronos. You also want to use cards like Cyrus Prism Star, whatever, to minimize your opponent's bench to the point where they have very little on their bench. And then you go with Scramble Switch here. Scramble Switch is absolutely broken, which means you can switch your active Pokemon with all your bench Pokemon, and you can move as many energy attached to the old active Pokemon to the new active Pokemon in any way you like. And then you go in with Garchomp and Giratina GX and use GGN GX. If you have 6 energy on it, then you can go ahead and discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, meaning that you can guaranteed win the game on the third, potentially on the third turn of the game. Meaning that your opponent can't really set up properly. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, you have to have some, like, galaxy brain plays, or, like, have a really good idea of what you're doing. But I think that the expanded format and, like, the really talented and clever people who make these sorts of decks, they know exactly what they're doing. Another deck that I want to show off here is Dragapolgar Garbodor. It might be, I believe, number 14 here, but looking at this list here, this deck is just so crazy. You play all 4 different Trubbish in your deck, which doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to me, but we want to focus not really on Dragapult V or VMAX, but we want to focus mainly on Garbodor. Both of the Garbodors. You have the Garbotoxin Garbodor, which is arguably one of the best cards I've ever seen in regards to control. And in fact, it probably is the best control card ever, because of its Garbotoxin ability. If it has a tool card attached to it, no one has any abilities except for Garbotoxin, which is just it's so crazy to see that you can lock up your opponent's abilities. Like, nowadays we have Aerodactyl V-Star, where it takes a V-Star power to make sure that your opponent doesn't have any abilities until, and that's not even until, or for like the whole game, it's until that Aerodactyl's knocked out. But as long as Garbodor has a tool card attached to it, it's like you can just keep sitting there with no abilities until your opponent gets a card like Field Blower or Faba or something like that, or Tool Scrapper. But then you could just go ahead and attach another tool card. It's like your opponent has to keep digging and trying to find the resources to get rid of your Garbotoxin, but then you can just go ahead and slap down another tool, and boom, you got another Garbotoxin. It's like, I get baffled by how crazy this sort of deck is. You also have the Trashalanche Garbodor, which does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. And if they've played even 10 item cards in their, they've played even 10 item cards total, that's doing 200 damage for one energy with a stage 1 Pokemon. Like, Garbodor in the expanded format is just so good. No matter which Garbodor it is, it's just good. Then you have Sudowoodo with a Roadblock ability, which you can just go ahead and use if your opponent has, like, Skyfield or whatever, and they're trying to set up a deck, or they're set up their combo. You just slap down a Roadblock, and then they have to discard a whole bunch of basic Pokemon, or bench Pokemon, until they only have 4. and then you can get rid of the Sudowoodo or do whatever with it. But it gets rid of cards like Skyfield. That might be super good. And then you also have cards like Pokemon Ranger. Pokemon Ranger is another really great card. Remove all effective attacks on each player and his or her Pokemon. This is another crazy card because Pokemon Ranger can get rid of GX attacks, really. They can get rid of Pale Moon GX, or they can get rid of like invincibility for a turn from like a V-Star power GX attack or something. It immediately opens up the range of being able to do stuff again. And it kind of is like a counter to those sort of toxic lock decks. So Dragapolgar Boater is another one of those like really quite literal toxic decks where it's just crazy to see what people come up with. We also have stuff like Rowleg Vileplume, and we're not really going to touch up on Rowleg Vileplume, but all you really need to know here is that Rowleg Vileplume is another one of those like lock decks, and once you get the lock going, your opponent's basic Pokemon can attack, you can't play item cards from your hand, etc., etc. It's just, it's so crazy. It's just, as someone who plays the standard format and makes content for the standard format, it's just so hard to like wrap my head around how the expanded format exactly works. What cards to use, what combos you can make, and I don't really think that there is very many combos left to find here. Well, I'm probably very wrong, but just considering how insane these combos get and how crafty people are, it just makes the whole format like you can win in a matter of 2 turns. Like the game could be over on turn 2. And quite honestly, that's not really fun. Standard right now is starting to heat up a bit, and it's starting to get a little more crazy. If we go ahead and we look at Standard Lost Origin, like right now we're starting to see Giratina and Palkia and Mew. Like all 3 of these decks can, and like Hisuian Zoroark, Kyurem, whatever, they can set up quickly, but it takes them a bit. Like Giratina, you have to get all your Pokemon or all your cards in the Lost Zone before you can start like going ahead and swinging for damage, and that can take a few turns. That can take like up to 3 or 4 turns. And then Mew is kind of one of those decks that can get set up in a matter of 2 turns, but Mew is heavily countered because people have figured out Mew. People know what Mew is, and they can put stuff like Drapion in their decks. But with stuff like the expanded format, it's anything goes. You have no idea what your opponent could be playing. They could be playing something that you've never seen before, and some random card from some random set in like black and white or whatever. With Standard, you can kind of figure out what your opponent's playing because they have to be playing something from Sword and Shield to Lost Origin. They have to be able to play something from there, and most Standard players, such as myself, have a pretty good knowledge of what exactly is being played. But people in the expanded format, they have black and white to Lost Origin. That's just so many cards, and I know every set from in standard format right now. But I don't exactly, once we get to like X and Y and earlier than that, I don't know very much about it because I was brand new to the game when those cards were around. But seeing that like you can't really know what your opponent's playing is and you have to figure out what to do, means that you can just go ahead and play like your counter really is lock it up and make sure that they can't play the game, or just get set up so quickly to the point where it's just boom, game over, done. You just win the game because you can lock them up with Garbodor, or you can lock them up using Alolan Muck, and you can use Silent Lab. You can also go ahead and just win on the second turn of the game with Dialga and Electro GX and Garchomp Giratina. Or you can just make sure that they can't play item cards or whatever with Rowlet Vileplume. Like, there's just so many things that make this so incredible. Well, I know, again, I'm not trying to, like, say, oh, the people are so toxic. They're doing what they can. They have to literally fight for survival. A deck has to fight for survival in, Expanded. It's either you do or you die. You just have to know what you're going up against, and you can't really do that in Expanded. You're always kind of hoping that it's not some sort of insane deck. If you're playing a mirror match, it's whoever gets set up first. Whoever goes first or whoever goes second, depending on the matchup. It all really depends on what deck you're playing and what your opponent's playing. And you could say the same thing for Standard, but if you're playing a locked deck and you go up against some traditional deck, or something like that, like, let's take a look at Jolteon and Teleon. I don't even know what Jolteon looks like in Expanded, but, like, if you're a Jolteon player, Jolteon and Teleon, this looks a lot just like a kind of normal-looking deck, right? This looks like a normal-ish deck. There are a couple cards that aren't exactly, like, you wouldn't normally see, but there's stuff like Max Potion, Scoop Up Cyclone, like some stuff that you might see in Expanded that you would never see anywhere else. But this is more of a traditional deck. We've seen Jolteon a whole bunch in Standard and whatever, but, I mean, I don't really know what to say about how a deck can go from, oh, this is super good, to, oh my gosh, this is now garbage, because there are now a million different decks that just absolutely beat the crap out of this deck. Like, Zacian it could be another example. Again, I don't know the Expanded format that well, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you don't know the Expanded format that well, because Expanded's just become so bizarre. It's just become so, like, it's driving people away from it. It's driving people away from it because people just don't want to lose on the second turn of the game. And I think that's kind of the biggest problem here, is that because there is such a wide range of cards, means that there is less interest, because sure, you can play with your favorite cards in your favorite combo, but that probably can't be enough, or it's not enough, compared to someone else's carefully crafted deck that they've spent so much time, and that they've played so many times. You have to play a specific archetype, or it doesn't matter. Your deck is just bad. With Standard, there's a chance that you can make some sort of some crazy, wacky deck that you can just have fun with. Looking at the Standard format, no one expected Arceus Flying Pikachu. No one expected this deck to do so good, because it came out of nowhere. Arceus Flying Pikachu just popped up after NAIC, after his little GG made it popular. And, like, Arceus Flying Pikachu was just able to cover all the bases, because it countered Palkia, it countered Mew, it was just able to get faster than other Arceus decks, eventually with World Championships and Hisuian and Decidueye being added. But it's more of just like, people have the Standard format figured out, and I know I'm kind of like repeating myself here, but people have the Standard format figured out. Expanded is just like the Wild West, really, where anything can happen, anything goes, and quite honestly, that huge amount of freedom is really what's restricting what you can play. So that's really my thoughts about Expanded, and why I don't think Expanded is really what people want to see anymore, and they just don't like it, is because of that. It sounds super ironic, but the more freedom you give people, the less they're gonna want to play it, and uh, the less you can play, the less freedom you have. Um, because once one person figures something out that's super good, everyone's gonna be playing that one thing that's super good. You can say it about Standard, but Expanded is a whole lot more extreme and a whole lot worse. Uh, so yeah, that's really my thoughts about the Expanded format. Kind of my, I think, like 25-minute rant about why Expanded is so crazy. So feel free to criticize my thoughts here. I'm totally fine with criticism. Just remember that this is my own opinion about why I personally don't think Expanded's good or it's very healthy, but I would like to hear your opinions and your thoughts about Expanded. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks everyone so much for watching, and as always, God bless and have fun. We'll see you on the next video.